Also, talk about dream cars. People say, "Oh, Lamborghini." I'm not really that big of a fan. They always just seem to fail and fail.
I hadn't seen one in real life until then, and it was like, it was a shock to see how good they were.
Full red, and I mean like bright red interior. Even the carpets are red.
Well, like bright red.
Bright red.
I'm only just thinking about
the
that.
black ground. It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's skidding everywhere. It's not coping well in the snow.
I'm just thinking about that now. That's
How
actually
have
crazy.
you never noticed that?
I don't know.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Let's Talk Cars podcast, the podcast in association with the Holdcroft Motor Group. This is the show where we talk all things from electric plugs to petrol pumps, giving you the latest news and updates from the motoring world. And today, in the second episode, I'm actually not on my own today. We have the one and only Holdcroft's very own social media exec, James. How are you doing today?
All right, guys, how's it going?
How are you doing on this fine grey Stoke afternoon?
I know, isn't it lovely?
It's always grey around here, isn't it?
A lovely day to get out and film some cars when it's nice and grey.
I know. We need some sun, get them nice sun shots.
And I'm ready for it now. Ready for it.
Anyway, so throughout today's episode, we're going to be talking about first cars, dream cars, and also our scariest and sort of worst driving experience, which brings me nicely onto this week's track topic. This week's track topic is your worst driving experience. So comment down below any bad experience you have with driving, whether it be bad weathers, bad drives, etc. Let me know in the comments and we'll read them out on next week's episode. So then, James, you're very new to Holdcroft. You're new to sort of the motor industry. How are you finding it?
Yeah, loving it, mate. Not been in the motor industry before, like you said, so yeah, it's great. It's great to get into some cars. I used to be more into cars when I was a kid, and it's kind of like re-sparked.
That's what I was going to say. Have you always been sort of like a fan of cars? Have you always, maybe not necessarily seen yourselves working in the motor industry, but have you always had like a slight interest?
Yeah, there's always been an interest in cars, definitely. Like when I was a kid, I actually did a year 4 project on an Audi R8, and I put a collage with loads of stickers of this Audi R8 on the things, and I used to call it Bessie as well.
I feel like the
cringy.
Audi R8 is what like probably most young kids and teenagers would see as their dream car.
I know, and for some reason, every kid as well just loved that car at the same time.
I just think just because it's like a well-known name, to be fair.
Yeah,
like
true,
everyone knows what an Audi R8 is, even from a young kid. To be fair, I was like you before I started working in the motor industry. I had an interest in cars, wasn't necessarily I was an enthusiast.
Yeah.
But I think just being in and around cars, going into new cars every day, I think you just get a sort of buzz from it, don't you? Just seeing these new cars coming, being the first to sit in.
It's given me like more of an appreciation for your average runaround as well.
Yeah,
before
definitely.
it'd always be like, oh, I'm looking at i30Ns or MX-5s or whatever, but now I'm like really into the Kona for some reason, or like the Tucson or something like that.
Exactly. So we're going to go sort of back to the start almost of your car journey.
Yeah.
I'm going to start talking about first cars. Now, you mentioned what your first car was, and you actually got it from a Holdcroft site.
Well, I bought it secondhand, but it was originally from Holdcroft Renault Hanley, which is interesting.
So what was your first car then?
It was a Renault Clio Campus, 2006. Absolutely loved it to bits. Best car ever. Oh, you're gonna say the same for your first car, aren't you?
Yeah,
like your first car, you have to love it. But man, I loved that car so much.
It's one of them things I think about a first car is where when you first get it, you obsess with it because like you're 17, 18 when you first get your first car, and it gives you that sort of sense of freedom, doesn't it? You can do what you want.
Yeah,
you round up your mates on a sunny day. Go on the long drive, blast out Oasis in the car. It's just great, isn't it?
That was the best thing ever. Like me and my mates were all into the same thing, like skateboarding, music and stuff. So I go around, pick up all mates, get the tunes on. Yeah, like you said, freedom, innit?
Yeah.
Freedom. Straight
Exactly.
from the
And I
get-go.
think it's that thing when you reminisce about your first car, you think, oh, God, what a great car. But then I had a Mini Cooper. It was a 56 Reg Mini Cooper.
Nice.
At the time when I first got it, I was like obsessed with minis. I'm like, I had the proper racing stripes on and everything. And then I was like, oh, I loved it. But then after like 6 months, I had broken clutch. The brake pads were going. The amount of money, I think it cost me $1,500. And I reckon in the 12 months I had it, I spent about £1,000 on repair.
Ooh.
So at the time you hate it, but then looking back, I'm like, oh, what a car.
I know. I think I had that Clio for about 5 years, and I think every single time I went for MOT, it was 300 plus quid.
Yeah.
So
they always just seem to fail and fail.
Yeah. So I spent at least $1,500 plus, and then when it finally died, I think they quoted me like $1,000 to fix it, and in my head I was just like, it's gone. It's gotta go.
So I remember when I part X my Mini, it got valued, and thankfully, the company at the time were doing an extra £500 on part X, but they actually valued it at 250 quid.
Really?
And I just thought, You might as well just take it straight to the scrapyard at that point.
Well,
That's all it was going to be.
took my Clio to the scrapyard and I got 90 quid for it.
Oh, but that's a sad day.
Yeah, and I
driving up the
watched it, and they
scrapyard.
came and picked it up off my drive as well on a flatbed, and I just watched it.
Did you watch it? Get completely crushed.
No, I didn't watch it get scrapped.
Oh, was that? That might be too emotional for you.
Yeah, it would have been too much, but I watched it get taken away on the flatbed, and I was gutted, staring out my bedroom window, just.
Yeah, I'm kind of jealous that you had a Renault Clio as your first car. For me, it was between a Mini or Renault Clio. I don't know what it is about them old style Renault Clios,
So
not old box shape.
Yeah, it was. So it would have been the Mark III. No, the Mark II.
Yeah.
The Mark III is when it got kind of more like pointy.
Yeah,
the nose in it. Yeah,
I kind of like
the Mark II one.
The one that was like the proper box shape.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about it. I just think one, it makes a perfect first car. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think it has some character about it. The old sort of style
They
Renault Clio.
definitely have character about it.
And the thing is, you can get. I've seen so many out on the road where they've been like, sort of zooped up. They had like, the sport line ones. I don't know what I've actually seen. I think it was when I went to Alton Park. I actually saw they had a race of just full Renault Clios. And do you know what? It's class.
Nice. Yeah, I got super into the 172 Clio, like the sport version.
Yeah.
I got super into that when I first got my Clio. I was like, oh, I'm gonna do it up like the 172, or I'm gonna trade this and then get the 172 version. It's gonna be sick. But
did you ever do it up, or did you have to spend too much money on repairs to think?
I had to spend way too much money on repairs to think about doing it up. And then because I was at university as well, so I got that car. Was at college for a couple of years, but I only worked at like Sports Direct during that time, which paid nothing. I had no money to do up this car, and then I was at uni, so I still had no money. And then when I come back from uni, that's when it decided that it was gonna go.
So we spoke about first cars. Me and James have sort of reminisced about our first cars, and I'm sure we all remember our first cars. That rites of passage, being an adult. Now let's jump ahead to the opposite end of the spectrum. Opposite end of the motor industry. Let's talk about dream cars. Now, for me, a dream car is something. I feel like you have to somewhat realistically think you could see yourself in it as a dream car. I think you can't necessarily say, "Oh, I'm going to own a £2 million car," although I feel some people have that optimism. But for me, I just think a dream car is just a really luxury, sort of high-end car that you could see yourself in. So, James, going to first bring this to you. What is your dream car?
So, this is actually my dream car just because, like, me and my dad used to talk about it a lot. We used to watch, like, Top Gear together.
Yeah.
And every time this car come up, we're like, oh, it's an amazing car. So, Porsche 911 GT3 RS.
Good choice.
And it comes with the ridiculous colour as well. You can get, like, red alloys with the red stripe down it.
Yeah.
It just looks like a fun car, like a mint car. And I feel like, as a dream car, it has to be fun. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got to see yourself proper whipping it around. And
I see like a dream car. Either has to have some ridiculous exterior design.
Yeah.
Be just ridiculously fun to drive, or just have like a really high-end interior.
Yeah, like super luxury.
Yeah, because I would say probably my dream car. I mean, as a kid, we mentioned before, talk about how every kid wants to have an Audi R8, just a known thing. For me, the car was a Porsche 911. I don't know whether it was just being obsessed with the film Cars as a kid that made me want a Porsche. That made me want to have a Porsche 911, or whether it's just because it was a known thing. But I think as I've got older and actually started driving and drove like multiple cars, for me, what sells a car to me, obviously it has to be nice on the outside. It can't just be a really ugly box. It has to be nice on the outside, but for me, it's the interior.
Yeah.
So as much as I really like the exterior design Porsche 911, I can imagine they'd be really fun to drive. I just feel like the recent ones have just been a bit meh in terms when it comes to interior.
A bit of a miss. Just feel like it's just copy and paste of a lot of other
cars.
It
just seems like
Alcantara, everything.
Yeah,
like Alcantara in bits, super nice. Like I was in the Nissan Aria on Tuesday, and it's just got it across the dashboard, super nice. But when you lather it all the way across, it's just not on.
So, I mean, I've also talked about dream cars. People say, "Well, Lamborghini." I'm not really that big of a fan. I mean, they're ridiculously nice cars, but I don't know. I think for me, it's got to be a Bentley Bentayga. I mentioned about having really nice interiors. I actually saw one online where it had like a mix of white and navy blue leather, and I'm just like,
"Oh, that sounds good. That sounds nice, actually."
I mean, the outside, I think there's nicer looking exterior cars.
Yeah.
But like I said, you want to be in luxury. You want to open a car and be like, wow. And I think a Bentley Bentayga in that sort of colourway, I think there'll be loads of colourways. I mean, I did actually see one, and I'll put it up, that had a full red, and I mean like bright red interior. Even the carpets are red.
Well,
and
like bright
bright red.
Damn.
Like it was a bit too much. Like you said about Alcantara, you want it in nice bit.
Yeah, you want it in little accents, don't you, just to give it some pop.
Yeah, whereas this one was just red everywhere, and then I had like wood along. Oh, I was not a fan. But then they obviously did the same car with the white and navy blue interior, and I'm just like, oh, that's an amazing looking car. I also think another car that I would love to have, and I think more of a realistic dream car. I mean, it's still an expensive car, but I think I could set my sights on. I can get this. It's actually an Alpine A110S. We visited the Solihull dealership not too long ago.
I hadn't seen one in real life until then, and it was like, yeah, it was a shock to see how good they were, because they kind of go under the radar a little bit.
I think they do, because I feel they're quite a sort of relatively new. They were back, a long time ago when they sort of first come onto the car scene, and they somewhat took a break out, and then they've had a bit of resurgence. I think that Alpine A110S in that fire orange of the carbon roof spoiler,
that was good.
And it also, like you said about the Alcantara interior, it has little accents of it, and they have the orange seat belts. Just everything about that, I'm just like, that's a nice car.
I liked in the center column, the mode switch buttons.
Oh, they
just
flash
intermittently flash like a slow glow at you.
It's just so even sick. On the seats when it has the Alpine A logo, and then along the side has the orange stitching. Just little things like that. When it all comes together like a uniform car. I think that's what makes a car.
Yeah, it's all those little subtle bits together, isn't it? No, not going too over the top, just having those little subtle things just together.
Bring them all together.
Yeah.
That's what
nice.
I think when it comes to car interiors, you want a lot of a small thing. What I mentioned about that? How I mentioned about that Bentley was all red.
Yeah.
If you have a car that's got like red, it's red on the outside, and you have red stitching, maybe red seat belts, red little logo, it would be nice. But if you plaster it with one colour, it loses its way.
Yeah, I agree. Like the Hyundai i30N, just having the little red accents across the bottom there, perfect.
So we talked about cars, a lot there about dream cars, about ones we really really like. So we're going to play a little game now.
All right.
We're going to be playing a game of hot or not. So I'm going to be
just
naming some cars, and we'll both have a discussion whether we like them, whether it be the exterior or interior design, or whether we've had experience driving them, whether you like them or not.
Yeah.
So first off, we're going to go Mazda MX-5.
Yes, love a Mazda MX-5.
So hot or not? Hot.
100% hot. 100%.
I know I'm definitely 100% hot. I mean, I've had, been lucky enough to drive one. It's just because it's so low to the ground, has 50-50 weight distribution. It's such a great drive. Handling around corners, going long. I actually got the chance to go on an actual sunny day.
Nice.
I think it was like last June, July, and we were going, along B roads, on country roads, twisty. It's the perfect car for that type of thing. But the reason why I put this in, because there's a lot of people I think who say not to an MX-5. A lot of people, because it has that antenna at the back. Some people say they look like a bit of an RC car, which I get the point. I get what
I do get that. To be fair, the antenna is a bit,
especially like the Mark
strange.
1, Mark 2.
Yeah.
Like it, but I don't know. It has a bit of character about it. It's iconic. It's the Mazda MX-5.
Yeah, it's a legendary car.
Exactly.
Iconic car. How could you say not hot to an MX-5?
Exactly. I mean, the interior is quite compact, and I would have to go for the retractable fastback, the hard top one, rather than the soft. I'm not really that big of a fan of the soft top.
I agree. Prefer the hard top version.
However, I do think like the Mark 1 MX-5 that has a soft top, again, it's just an iconic car. I don't think I'd say no to one, to be fair. Next up, slightly different car here. It's a Fiat Panda.
Oh, no.
Are we going hot or not?
You know what? This is a tricky one, because I want to say not, because it is a bit of an ugly car. But if you're repping that car and you're fully firm and, I've got a Fiat Panda, love this car, then I might say it's a hot car. Do you know what I mean? It's a bold choice, and that's why I would say it's a hot car.
I thought you were going to say not, like 100% not, and I was going to play devil's advocate. I mean, it's not the greatest looking car in the world. I don't think it performs considerably well, but I think it's the most well apt to name car. I don't know whether they made the design and said, yes, Fiat Panda. Because if you look at it when you get the white one, it does look like a panda's face.
I'm only just thinking about
the
that.
black ground. It does, doesn't it? It's the most well-named. And I want to know what came first, the name or the design.
Interesting.
The old chicken
like
and the egg
chicken
story. Like what came first. If you do look at it, I mean, it does look like a panda.
Yeah, I'm only just thinking about that now. That's actually
How have
crazy.
you never noticed that?
I don't know.
Anytime I've
Maybe I'm not looking so hard at a Fiat Panda every time I see one. Maybe they're just going past me and I'm like, it's a Fiat Panda.
How are you not noticing a Fiat Panda? Iconic car.
Well, James May had one. That says something.
That is true.
And he's got an Alpine too.
He's had a lot of cars, to be fair. I think one of his favourites that I know Clarkson Hammond's proper rips into. He was a massive fan of like the old style Honda Civic Type R's. I know
yeah.
he was obsessed with it, which I think are amazing looking
Yeah,
cars.
they look mint.
But I know the other two, they slag it off and say it's like a bit ugly because they say that the front's like got too many components. They don't like the big spoiler. I think it's a great looking car.
I think all of them have been mint.
Yeah.
All of them ace.
Even the old style where it was more of like a curve shape, whereas now it's a bit, I don't know, I'd say a bit more jagged at the front. You know what I mean? That's like sort of stages going up. Like all these Civic Type R's, I think, been great.
I did a post last week on the Civic Type R EK9 version.
Yeah.
And it looked incredible. I was just searching through images, just looking for one to post up on our feed. I was like, wow, this is an awesome car. You know what? Dream car. An all Type
late
R.
contender for
yeah,
Dream.
late contender.
Oh, see, I'd just have to say the brand new Type R. You know, that red interior.
Yeah, it's nice.
I think it's brilliant.
Nice.
Right, next up, slightly sort of similar vibe to the Fiat Pandora, although I would say it's a much better looking car. The Nissan Juke.
I'm giving hot.
I would say hot.
I'm giving hot. Just, I don't know. This feels like it's an iconic car already.
Yeah,
I
just think because they're quite, I wouldn't say mainstream, I don't want to put it down that route, but they're quite popular in the sense that you see a lot of them about.
That's why I'm saying it's hot, because I think it's becoming like an early iconic car. Like you said, you see a lot of them about.
And I would say, even though if you look at like the old gens or like the first sort of Mark Nissan Juke, even though it somewhat still looks the same, I think they managed to update it gradually. And if you compare like a one now to like say 2010 Nissan Juke, I think it's massively gone up. Like it looks so much nice, especially the Nissan Juke Hybrid where it has that nice black strip along the front.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch. That is.
Yeah, to be honest, and even when you get sort of the Tecna, the higher specs, when it has the two-tone colour, I mean, we even looked on the Nissan website. You can get flames on the top, like custom flame.
we need to do that for a video. See if we can get a flame roof.
See, I just think that's such a great addition. You know, being able to customize a car like that. So that to me, Nissan Juke's 100% hot.
Yeah, I'll give it to hot car.
Next up is quite a new car, and that is the Peugeot 408. Now, I've got my mind made up about this, and I'll let you go first.
We've had a couple of chats about it, haven't we? But I don't know. I think it's a cool looking car.
Yeah.
I think it looks cool, but it lacks something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something about the back end of it kind of lacks. Maybe looks a little bit boring. But I really like the front, and I like the new badge. You know.
Yeah. I'm a fan of like the way Peugeot have gone, and I think when I first saw like the first image releases of the 408, I was like, that looks really good. But now I've seen it on in person. I don't know. If you look at like a photo from the side, I think that, like you said, it misses something.
Yeah,
you have that really sporty front, like really sort of unique styling front grille, and you look at it from the back and the side, like, I feel like they missed a trick with it.
I feel like if you were just looking at it at the front as well, you'd almost like misidentify it as a hatchback.
Yeah.
And then you see the side and it's kind of deceiving.
I think that's why when I first saw the first images, I really liked it because I thought it was going to be a bit of a sporty, almost like a hot hatch.
Yeah.
But then you look at it from the side and it looks more like a bit of a clumpy SUV.
Yeah.
So reluctantly going to say not on that one.
You know what? I'm going to go with not on that one as well.
I'm just a bit nah. Finally, for hot or not, another new release, the Hyundai Ioniq 6. I'm going to 100% hot. That is an amazing looking car. I know a lot of people, that talk online aren't necessarily the biggest fan. They say the front looks like the old Hyundai Coupe. They say the back is trying to copy Porsche. But I think that if you look at the whole design of that car, you've got different elements from different cars, but bring them all together, and it's a very unique looking car.
Yeah, I agree. Hot car. Like you were saying, it looks like the old Hyundai Coupes. I kind of like that because it's almost like retro is in right now.
It's like they're bringing
it round to like retro but futuristic.
Yeah,
it's super hot right now. It's a really good looking car.
It's really well thought out because it looks sort of fastback, it looks sort of sporty, and obviously with it being an EV, you've got that classic Ioniq styling with the headlights, especially the rear. But then they're bringing it the old back, they're bringing the old Hyundai styling back to now, but giving it a fresh face. Right, so we spoke about first cars, dream cars. We spoke about how when you get your first car, it's that rite of passage in it, and you have so many good times on the road. I think when you're a new driver, getting in the car with your mates and just having a laugh. I mean, we have, I think, somewhat similar music taste, don't we?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I'll definitely go towards some more heavy-sided stuff. But
I'm all
crossover.
That's what I mean. Like on a sunny day, driving with your mates, windows down, sun's out, blaring something like Oasis.
Yeah,
you can't beat it. But with all this talk about nice driving experiences, let's go on. What's your worst driving experience? So, see, I've got quite a bad driving experience story. And what have you got any? What, I want to hear
I
yours
think
first.
probably my worst day. I did a mad journey. So I drove from Stoke to Leicester to drop my girlfriend back off at uni,
Yep.
and then for some reason I drove back to Stoke. I don't believe. Oh, I picked up my friend from Stoke who lived with me in Leeds, so I drove to Leicester, back from Leicester to Stoke. Then I went from Stoke to Salford to pick up my other flatmate that lives with us. Then went from Salford into Manchester just to cut about Manchester for a bit, and then finally Manchester to Leeds, and it was like the longest day. It was the longest day. It absolutely sucked.
Oh, that's what I mean. I quite enjoy driving, but I think when it's like you go from one place and you drive to another and you drive to another. I mean, no matter what car you're in, it's like
It
it
was
just
the
becomes a
whole
drag.
day, and it just dragged as well. Oh, and then I was coming back from Leeds one time from uni. It's like a 2.5 hour drive, something like that. It generally took us 7 hours once because we were stuck before getting out of Leeds for about 4 hours. Before we'd even got out of Leeds, we were stuck for 4 hours. There was a crash literally like a few cars in front of
Uh,
us, and we were just trapped.
there's nothing worse than being stuck on the motorway and you can't move or go anywhere. Or do you know
No,
what?
terrible.
The one thing that annoys me, I mean, there could have been in these scenarios, probably someone knows why they do this, but you know, if you're driving on the motorway and all of a sudden 40 flashes up and
Mm.
you do 40 for about, 5, 10 miles, and all of a sudden it goes to 70 and there's nothing there.
I know. What's that about?
I know there are probably some like traffic operators who might watch this and go, "Oh, it's actually to to allow the flow of traffic." But
Yeah, yeah.
why? Surely, if it's even if it's busy, just drop it to at least 60.
Or it'll be like a shoe in the odd shoulder, and
Yeah,
you're like, we've
that's
got to
what I
slow
mean.
down for
I
the
know.
shoe.
Oh well, it's even worse when there's might be a bad crash on the other side and it's gridlock,
Mm.
and everyone like all backs up. You think, oh, what's going on? 5 miles up the road, there's a crash on the other side. It's
Mm.
because people are stopping to look
I
at
know.
it. Like there
Ridiculous.
generally could be someone seriously injured, and you're wanting to just gawk at it.
Nosy people, man.
And I never get it. I mean,
Nosy people.
my worst driving experience, hands down, was I was driving back from Newcastle,
Mm.
and it was actually Christmas Eve.
Mm.
So obviously we were like, right, we need to quickly get back. And then I was like, right, I want to go before, I think it was about midday, because I
Uh,
knew there was snow coming in.
uh,
So, but for some reason, we didn't end up going until about 1:30. Just load up the cars, start going out, heaven start opening with snow. And I mean, it was like that sort of thick snow. It wasn't like sleet or anything. It was like proper
Proper snow.
chunky snowflakes coming down. So we start driving and it's like a blizzard. I'm like, the motorway is just going to be chaos. Get on the motorway and there's probably like an inch, 2 inches of snow
on the actual motorway.
on the actual motorway. Because obviously I think the grids might have been out, but because it's that heavy snow, they've not had a chance to get, lorries down or anything. So then about half an hour into the journey, I barely got anywhere because everyone's going like 30 miles. My little Mini, bless it, is skidding everywhere. It's
Oh,
not
no.
coping well in the snow. Next thing, I'm absolutely dying to go to the toilet. So I'm like, right, I'm going to have to stop. I don't want to. Coming off the motorway, come off the slip road, the roundabout, and the whole way round, I'm just braking at traffic, like skidding.
Oh.
When you brake and your wheels just lock.
Yeah,
I don't. I hate driving in the snow. And then come off the service station. It's sort of like a slip road down, like goes down. Next thing, just completely lose control of the car. When you
Full
brake,
sideways jump.
and there's literally nothing you can do.
Yeah.
Like skidding down like that.
Jesus, take the wheel.
It's literally, I was like, well, there's nothing I can do. I just literally have to skid. And then because I had my wheels turned, and then smashed into the curb, completely misaligned my wheels
Oh,
to
no.
my actual steering wheel. So then when I actually started to get going, I think it took me about 10 minutes to get out of the service station because I was literally, the car park was just like an ice rink. I was going everywhere. So then we were only about like an hour from Newcastle. So we had to go it must have been like around Wetherby. We had to go from there all the way back to Manchester, driving like this because my wheels and steering wheel were completely out of line. We rang some garages. They were either booked up or shut because it's Christmas Eve. So then I then had to drive Christmas Day morning back to, my hometown like that. Oh, it was awful.
Terrible. On Christmas Eve as well.
That's what I mean.
The
It couldn't have
worst
happened
day.
at the worst time. You're already a bit stressed with Christmas, and then that happens.
I have a similar story. It was on Christmas Day. This wasn't me. This was my girlfriend. She literally must have had a car for about 3-4 months. It was Christmas Day. She was coming to my house, full sideways action on the car. She went across the roundabout, the other car pulled out, just nailed it on Christmas Day.
Oh,
I
great.
got into that.
That is good.
Christmas Day absolutely ruined.
See,
Car
thankfully,
written off.
touch wood, I've not actually been in a. I don't know what I'm jinxing now. Probably in a expression.
Yeah, you've done it now.
I've
Manifested
never
it.
actually been in like like with another car, but yeah, I think ever since then, anytime the snow starts falling, I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah,
Like,
that's funny though, is because I haven't been in a touch wood. I've not been in a crash with another car. I've hit a few bollards.
Yeah.
100% some bollards have been smashed.
Oh, you always hit the odd bollard when you first car, don't
Just
you?
reverse it, like rushing places and be like, right, I'm reversing into this spot, and then you just bash it.
I'll never forget my Mini. I mean, when I got it, it already had like a load of touch-up jobs on the bumper. Like the bumper was a complete mess even when I first got it. I think then when I gave it back, it was even worse. The amount of sort of scratches, and I just got some. Obviously, didn't want to tell my parents to scratch my car, so quickly go to Alfred to get some paint, just touch it up, and then just do an absolute bodge job on it.
That reminds me actually. In the snow, I pulled up my car at home when I lived with my mum, and the driveway kind of points downwards, and I parked it after it had just snowed, but the next morning all the snow had melted, and because the snow had melted, my car was like perched on top of the snow, so it slipped all the way down my drive and hit the front of my house.
Oh,
And my
great.
mum was viewing. She was looking out the window. She was going, "How close have you parked to the house?" I was like, "I've parked ages away. It looks like it's hit the house." I ran down it. I'd hit the house and proper scratched up all the
great.
bumpers.
So we spoke a lot about different types of cars first.
Do the clap. Sink it.
Oh, it don't matter
Oh, okay.
because it was
Sorry.
looking. God, must be flow up there, James.
Sorry.
So we spoke a lot about, first cars, talk about dream cars, cars we think are hot or not. I want to get your opinion because I'm very much for these types of cars. I think is a look into the future. I think this is obviously the ways everyone's heading, so we all need to get our heads around it, and that's EVs. What's your thoughts?
Before getting into the motor industry, I probably didn't think anything about EVs, to be honest. It was just like, in fact, I didn't know how many EVs are on the market
Yeah.
before I got into the motor industry. There is so many EVs out there, and they are getting better and better. We spoke about the Ioniq 6 earlier, and that is a banging example of a new EV. But yeah, I quite like an EV.
Yeah.
It is the way forward, isn't it? Like I've been thinking as well to trade my car and maybe look at getting an EV.
I think when it comes to EV, I think a lot of people think, well, driving in from work, I'm running low on petrol. I can quickly nip in the petrol station, 5-10 minutes if it's busy, if that. But I think at first it seems like there's a lot more planning around it. Like you might think, I'm going to have to try and charge somewhere near the office, or I'm going to have to, plug it in when they're getting home from work. But I think once you have sort of the basics down, pull on your drive or outside your house, plug it in, or if you're lucky enough that they have them at work, just plug them in, and then it's a very much a low cost way to run your car.
Yeah. Well, you remember to plug your phone in, don't you?
That's what
So
I mean.
you got to remember to plug your car in.
It'll just become a habit, and then it also saves you diverting to a petrol station and driving. I'm all for it, and I think another reason why I'm for it, obviously, because 2030 there'll be no petrol or new petrol and diesel cars out, so we're all sort of going to have to get used to it at some point. My only sort of criticism at the minute is if there was like petrol station that had more EV plugs in, I'd be more for it and be more inclined. That's the only thing that's sort of making me go against it slightly.
Yeah,
Although
yeah.
if you can get a home charger, it's fine, but obviously it won't work for me at the minute. Everyone's got a different sort of situation. But I think if it got to a point where you could pull up at a petrol station and there was, like you have these big Tesla superchargers.
Yeah.
If you had them at pretty much every petrol station, even if you only had 2 or 3, I'd be 100% up for getting one. Because I think with EVs, they all look very unique. That's one thing I will say.
That's what I've noticed as well. Nothing really looks the same as the last one, do they?
Exactly, whether it's like the exterior design or whether it's the interior design. I think they're all quite unique, whereas you might look at, it might be after an estate car, for example, and you line up a load of estate cars in the industry, you might think, oh, that's like that, that's like that. They've all got a bit of carbon copy interiors.
Yeah.
That's what I like about EVs, completely unique, but I think they have to, in a sense, don't they?
Yeah.
Because obviously I think car franchises know that EVs aren't necessarily a fan's favourite. They're not exactly massively popular, although they are getting more popular, and I think, rightly so. So I think the car manufacturers do sort of have to be like, right, we're going to have to make this look special. And you know what they do?
I was, like I said about earlier, the Nissan Aria.
Yeah.
That looks so mint. I didn't see one in person till the other day. It looks ace. It looks incredible. Looks like an actual spaceship.
I would say that's more the Ioniq 5.
You reckon?
That looks more like a spaceship.
Yeah, the Ioniq, I'll tell you what, the Ioniq 5 looks like a UFO.
Yeah.
And the Aria looks like a spaceship.
Like
Do you know what I mean?
Millennium Falcon type.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. And if you have a look at the Aria interior, I mentioned that on the last podcast, and it's so sort of like refined, so modern, so unique, and it's just ultimately just dead spacious. That's another thing you get about EVs because you don't have that, especially in the back, you don't have that middle bit. So that middle person is not going to awkwardly have to put their feet either side or something. To me, I'm 100% all for EVs, and I'm just glad that they're getting more and more popular. I mean, I don't know if you've had much experience driving an EV, but for me, it throws you back to when you're a kid because obviously it's just all electric. It's like a massive go-kart.
Mm.
And I think that's the best thing about them. I think people might think, well, you don't get that nice engine. I mean, you don't get any engine sound. But the fact that because it's electric, you get like instant torque straight away. All you have to do is put your foot down. It's such a fun driving experience.
I need to get myself in one, man. I've not driven one yet. I need to experience this go-kart.
Oh,
madness.
100%. You need to get yourself on.
I gotta do it.
100%.
Gotta do it.
Right, anyway, that draws a close to the second episode of Let's Talk Cars podcast. Thank you very much, James.
No worries.
You might feature later on.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll come back.
You might soon become a fan favourite. Who knows? But that draws an end to this week's episode of the Let's Talk Cars podcast. And don't forget that this week's track topic is your worst driving experience. So any bad weather, any bad sort of encounters with other road users, then drop down in the comments to let me know, and we'll read them out on next week's episode. Until then, see ya.